Change is coming by disaster or by design.
We hold the power to change the political calculus in America.
We have power. We have so much power.
So we will vote, we will resist, we will hug trees, we will stop our own polluting, we will boycott companies that pollute.
The seas are rising, and so are we.
We're gonna go raise a ruckus.
This really marks the escalation of Fire Drill Fridays.
And you know, so much of my hope also comes from watching how ideas move from the shadows and the edges and the margins towards the center.
Our social movements have grown exponentially.
Don't blink, don't back down from this fight, because when it comes to us and climate deniers, we will win politically and we will win on the policy.
Woo! Yes, we have the power to make changes, right? And we need to build a better world. So I'll see you next time. Thank you. And welcome to all you fire drill firefighters to our Mother's Day rally. And to those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome Fire Drill Fridays family, where we're building community, learning about the climate crisis, and taking action to direct it. Each of you can help our movement grow by sharing today's show so your friends and colleagues can join the movement. So please take a moment now and hit the share button. The more people who understand the gravity of the potential climate catastrophe and are willing to take action, the more chance we have to minimize it. You know, people throughout history have referred to the earth as Mother Earth. Mother. After all, the earth, like a mother, sustains us, provides us and fellow creatures with all that we need to survive and thrive: food, water, air, beauty. Margaret Atwood has called Earth the Goldilocks planet. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. And for millennia, Mother Earth has cradled us in her just rightness until now, when because of our greed, hubris, racism, patriarchal mindset, Mother Earth is struggling. Her Goldilocks equilibrium is being challenged, and so is our survival. And it's understandable that human mothers have been at the forefront to fight to correct the imbalance, because it's the future of our children that's at stake. And so we march and bring our grandchildren with us so that resistance will become part of their DNA for after we're gone. And we invite them to engage in civil disobedience with us, so they'll know that even though things will get worse, which they inevitably will because of all the heat that's already baked in, they can be part of ensuring it will get better if we're willing to put our bodies on the line. This is me welcoming my grandson out of detention and my 17-year-old granddaughter out of juvenile detention. You know, we model activism for our children and all young people as they rise up, and in turn, they call on all the elders to join them, and it becomes a vibrant intergenerational mass of us, demanding us to remember that there's only one Mother Earth, and that she's calling to us to become our better selves, to fight for laws and policies that foster generosity, humility, equity, empathy, and kindness and peace. So to start us off today, we'll hear Cheryl L'Hirondelle perform her prayer song. Cheryl is Cree Halbreed and has family roots in Papaschase First Nation, Kinkino Métis settlement in Edmonton, Alberta, from the land now known as Canada. She is a songwriter who shares indigenous languages as a way to keep them alive and strengthen right relations with the earth. She wrote this song because she was inspired by Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass. Please, let's listen to Cheryl.
Have their own stories and their own songs.
That was
So beautiful.
Incredible.
Yes, and now I want to introduce the writer who inspired Cheryl to perform that song. Robin Wall Kimmerer is a mother, scientist, decorated professor, and enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. She's the author of Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants, which has earned Kimmerer wide acclaim. And boy, do I urge you to read it. It's so beautiful. She lives in Syracuse, New York, where she's a SUNY Distinguished Teaching Professor of Environmental Biology and the founder and director of the Center for Native Peoples and the Environment. Welcome, welcome, Robin.
Bonjour, Indinowe Maganadok. Hello, my relatives. And Miigwech Jane, thank you for that generous introduction and for bringing us all together to stand up for Shkok our Mother Earth, in these most urgent of times. In my Potawatomi culture, women bear a special responsibility to speak for the water and for all the sources of life. And so I'm honored to join all of you amazing women here today. And ho-wah, I am swept away by Cheryl's prayer song. It feeds my spirit every time I hear it. Each of us is here in the world because of mother love we have been given. And as we celebrate mothers, let us use that fierce mothering energy to protect Mother Earth so our children and all the 7 generations have a future. But also the bird children and the frog children too, because they all want to live. We are showered every day with the gifts of Mother Earth: water to drink, food to eat, a breath of sweet morning air, the companionship of maples and meadowlarks. And yet we find ourselves harnessed to an economy that relentlessly asks, what more can we take from the earth? This worldview of unbridled exploitation is, to me, the greatest threat to the life that surrounds us. Isn't the question we need, what does Mother Earth ask of us? Cheryl's song, Chi Miigwech Mashkikia, makes a promise to the plants and to Mother Earth that I intend to keep, and I hope you'll join me. In this time of climate crisis, we can learn from those plants. They know what to do about climate change. They don't dither in ineffectual meetings. They just get to work. Think about it. They have already converted completely to a solar economy. And as we search for new technology to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, we should keep in mind that there is already a system to do that, and it has even more bells and whistles. It generates oxygen, makes music, protects biodiversity, and purifies water all at the same time, and it makes us feel happy and peaceful. It's called a forest. Only 8% of climate spending goes to support natural ecosystems like forests. We need to invest in protecting and regenerating the infrastructure of the natural world. Reforestation, restoration, and land protection should be at the top of our priorities for climate resilience. You know, plants have been removing carbon dioxide from the air since the beginning and storing it in tree trunks and prairie grasses and rich, fertile soil. We should follow their lead and join the movement to keep it in the ground. Plants save the water. Cut down enough forests and the rain will disappear. And as the world heats up, who cools our cities but the trees? Doing sophisticated air conditioning without using a single watt of electricity. It is not enough to just protect the remnants that remain. We have to put our hands in the earth and heal the wounds that we have caused. We have to use those gifts of mother love to heal Mother Earth. Restoration is the art of reciprocal healing. Get out the shovels, get out the seeds, get down on our knees, because when we heal the land, we heal ourselves. In these dark times, we remember that the plants have not given up in despair. They're growing on mine waste, and they're pushing up through the pavement. They make food, they make medicine, they make beauty. They give more than they take. They heal the people and heal the earth. Surely, we could do the same. We have to remember that the word plant is not just a noun. Plant's a verb, and plant we must. Plant trees, plant a garden, plant your feet, plant a stake in the ground and say, no farther, no more pipelines, no more loss. What does the earth ask of us? How could we possibly reciprocate the gifts of the generous earth? With gratitude, with ceremony, in fierce defense of the places we love. In science, in song, in ballads, in stories from the past, in imagination for the future, in how we spend our money and how we spend our precious lives. By raising our voices, raising good children, and raising a ruckus. By refusing to be complicit with the forces of ecological destruction. The moral covenant of reciprocity calls us to honor our responsibilities for all we have been given, as well as for all that we have taken. It's our turn. Let us hold a giveaway for Mother Earth. Spread our blankets out for her and pile them high with gifts of our own making. Imagine the books, the paintings, the poems, the clever machines, the compassionate act, the transcendent idea, perfect tool, the beautiful handmade gift that is you. Whatever our gift, we are called to give it and dance for the renewal of the world. Miigwech, back to you, Jane.
Great.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Robin. What a beautiful speech. Thank you. Thank you. My next guest is Ellen Dorsey, Executive Director of the Wallace Global Fund, a private foundation focused on progressive social change in the fields of environmental democracy, human rights, and corporate accountability. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you so much, Jane. I'm really honored to be here, part of this panel with such amazing women, many of my sheroes, on this Mother's Day weekend. One of the best moments I've had as a mother in the last several years was participating in a Fire Drill Friday rally, an act of civil disobedience with my 23-year-old daughter. We rallied, we sang, we marched to the Senate office building and sat down in peaceful protest. The event was extraordinary. Civil rights leaders, racial justice activists, climate leaders, artivists, youth leaders, grandmas and grandpas engaging in political action for the first time, and many more. After being arrested, we spent hours being held in the police station, sharing stories with the other protesters of how climate and environmental harms are threatening our families and communities. We talked about past movements and strategies of activism. We shared life stories, and we cared and worried for each other as it was cold and some of the group were frail or afraid. And we cheered each time someone was released, celebrating their activism. Mostly, we became a movement by standing up and acting together. Doing so together with our daughters was extraordinary and extraordinarily sad. They are becoming activists out of grave necessity. Children as young as 10, teenagers, early 20-something have grown up through the turmoil of the last decade, facing a climate emergency, a public health emergency, with an ongoing racial justice emergency. Their childhoods have already been profoundly altered. And when they tell us they do not have hope, they fear having children, we have failed. But our youth have not. As activists, they're brilliant, organizing in new and extraordinary ways, intersectional commitments, using technology differently, standing in solidarity with each other deeply and profoundly. They're beautiful, powerful, and targeting those in power in new and effective ways. But I am worried about my generation. What happened to us? Why have we not done more, moms? Why are we not doing more now? Mothers of every species fiercely protect their brood. They prepare for future generations and take down any threat in their children's way. Our children and the children of our communities are being poisoned. They are under assault from pollution. Their lives are at stake. Darkness hangs over their future, and fear of fires, storms, and continued witness to suffering permeate their daily lives and their dreams. They tell us this. But are we building a wall of defense and destroying what threatens them? We've done it before, and we must do it again, but far more urgently. In the 1880s, the Ladies' Health Protection Association was formed in New York, later named the Women's Health Protection Association, and a few chapters started to grow across the state and then in Pennsylvania. Faced with blankets of pollution enveloping their communities from exploding industrialization, women organized to protect their families and communities. In Pittsburgh, my hometown, the center of fossil fuel development, the Ladies' Health Protection Association organized the first smoke abatement campaign. It was successful, if limited, in a city called Hell with the Lid Off. Again, in the 1960s and 70s, families and moms organized on growing air pollution and toxins, and partly as the result of the science of another famous Pittsburgher, Rachel Carson, the Clean Air Act passed. Air was cleaner, but the combustion of fossil fuels continued, accelerating pollution that was now more invisible and insidious. But since the 1970s, the problem is now far worse and more complex. Our political system has been captured by money from special interests, with both sides of the aisle being beholden to the power of industry. And as the industry's power grew, piece by piece, life-saving protections were dismantled. Fossil fuel companies spread disinformation about both the health and climate impacts of their products, and governments stalled on action to regulate the pollution or adopt life-saving alternatives. Greed and profit once again triumphed over the protection of the common good. And in those decades, the impact of that pollution on our health and the climate has become increasingly clear and urgently worse. Now it's a full-blown emergency. A recent study by Harvard, a study that the foundation I work for funded, showed that the combustion of fossil fuels is causing 8 million premature deaths annually across the globe. And in the United States, fossil fuel particulate matter is responsible for roughly 350,000 deaths per year of people older than 14. Now stop and let that sink in. With renewable energy, those are avoidable deaths. And there are companies and politicians responsible for them. They have not protected us despite knowing the science, understanding the impacts, and that alternatives are available and can be brought to scale. As well, this same pollution encircles our Earth and is changing the climate, driving extreme weather events, causing mass dislocation and disruption, on and on and on. And it's been said over and over, we're the first generation to truly understand the extent of this crisis and the last to do something about it in time. So let me translate that. We are the parents and uncles and aunts and workers and people of faith that must enact dramatic change in our lifetime. So today, this Mother's Day, we're faced with the ultimate choice. We must become the Ladies' Health Protection Association, the families for a future of today. We have to act with a ferocity fit for the moment. We must stand up, show up, lay down and block and cut off the financial lifeblood to the industry that is the greatest threat to our children and children's children the world has ever witnessed. And we can do it, and there are effective strategies, and we need to put them on steroids. Cut off the financial flows to a rogue industry. Organize your faith group, your retirement account, your alma mater to divest from fossil fuels. Call on your bank to cut off financing to new fossil fuels. Block the development of new fossil fuel projects. Tell our politicians that none of our tax dollars should go to a killing industry. No subsidies to fossil fuels at the federal, state, or local level. Ask your politician if they take money from the fossil fuel industry, and if they do, they'll never get your vote. Stand in solidarity with communities fighting fossil fuel extraction and those whose jobs have been lost from the extractive economy. Stand up, call for a Green New Deal, and defend those politicians that are fighting for infrastructure, jobs, and the new economy. And get ready to block and tackle anyone that gets in the way of ending the fossil fuel era and ushering in a new energy economy. Don't be deceived by greenwashing, and stand up and call out the lies. All of these strategies are working, but not fast enough. We need an army of motivated families, parents, workers, pastors, rabbis, doctors, and nurses. This Sunday, stand with the children of your community. Look into the eyes of your own children and pledge this is the moment when you become the movement that stops the pollution killing our children and our planet. We can do it. We must, and we will be raucous and joyous and victorious. Thank you, and back to you, Jane.
Amen.
Thank you, Ellen. And now I am just always so thrilled and happy to welcome back Annie Leonard, Executive Director of Greenpeace USA. Welcome, Annie.
Thank you, Jane. I am so happy to join this special Mother's Day Fire Drill Friday. Of all the roles I have, activist, director, author, friend, being a mother is the one that is the most important to me. And on a personal level, speaking between Ellen and Miya is especially special for me today because we all became moms at the same time. And in so many ways, we supported each other as we raised our daughters, who are still friends to this day. Going back to 20 years ago when my daughter and Mia's daughter were in daycare together, as we figured out how to balance being a mom and an activist, a working mom, all of these things together. So it's really great to see you all here today. I remember actually the exact moment when I found out I was going to be a mother. A part of my brain that I didn't even know existed turned on that could do nothing but focus on my child's well-being. Other moms know about this, right? It's like it just switches on. Immediately, I stopped drinking coffee and wine. I threw out all my cosmetics and household cleansers and anything that might possibly have chemicals that could harm my baby. And then I remember when I first saw her, that moment of first seeing your child, that mothering part of my brain grew 1,000,000 times bigger. And at that moment, I looked at this little baby and I knew that I would do whatever I needed to do to keep her safe. So I did everything I knew how to do to protect her from colds and flus and cuts and burns and cars and chemicals and accidents and harm, because that is what mothers do. But there is something else we moms must do now to keep our children and our grandchildren safe. Something that wasn't on my new parent list back then. We must do everything we can to end the era of fossil fuels. All of us fire drillers know, because we learn every Friday, that the science about climate is clear and urgent. Climate change is real, it's bad, fossil fuel pollution is the major driver, and there's still time to change our course. The world's top scientists have said that we must ambitiously reduce our fossil fuels. We need to reduce our fossil fuel pollution by about half in under a decade. And yet our elected leaders are moving in the wrong direction. They're continuing to permit, to expand, and even to financially subsidize fossil fuels, all while the climate crisis intensifies. The impacts of fossil fuels, from extraction and burning to climate impacts, are vast, and they disproportionately harm Black, Brown, Indigenous, and low-income families. So it's a scientific crisis and it's an ethical crisis. Yet our leaders are refusing to act in line with what the science and justice demands. Watching the reality of this escalating crisis and the inexcusable inaction of our leaders is taking a toll on our children. Young people today, including my daughter, are struggling with a new ailment, climate anxiety. Listen to these numbers. It's just terrifying. In the US, 57% of American teens say they feel afraid, and 43% feel hopeless because of climate change. Fewer than a third of teenagers today are optimistic about the future. What are we doing to these kids that fewer than a third feel optimistic? And it's not just in the US. The United Nations recently did this gigantic consultation listening to young people around the world about the state of youth. Every place around the world, the kids uniformly reported that climate change has affected their mental health, caused depression, confusion, despair, and hopelessness, uncertainty about what the future will look like, fear of losing their homes and lives, and anxiety about whether there will be a world left for them and future generations. Some are in such despair about the future that they've decided not to become parents unless we change course. There's a new term for this. It's called birth strikers, and the birth striker movement is growing. Our children see that fossil fuel pollution is driving the climate crisis, and as that Harvard research study recently documented, is literally killing people. And yet the adults who are supposed to protect them aren't. That's why the young people are taking things into their own hand. Even before they're old enough to vote, they were organizing and protesting and striking from school to engage in climate activism. Some of these youth climate strikers inspired and helped create Fire Drill Fridays and spoke at the first one, like Jerome Foster right there. At age 19, my daughter joined me and about 300 others, including Jane and Heather and Ellen and Ellen's daughter, to engage in civil disobedience at the US Senate to demand climate action. Before the pandemic paused these mass climate protests, the climate strikes were growing and growing, and they will be back. The largest one so far was in September 2019. I hope many of you participated. Between 4 and 8 million people joined in over 100 countries, many of them young school children. That is inspiring, but as a mother, I have to say it's also infuriating. School children should not have to leave school to protest for their future. It should not be their job. But they are scared and they are angry. And kids today are also smart. They know that taking action, especially when we do it together, is both a powerful force to make our leaders act, and it is a powerful antidote to despair. The kids are demanding one simple thing: the chance to have a future. And that is what we want for them too. So one of the things about that mothering brain I told you turned on immediately when I found out I would be a mother, in addition to thinking 24/7 about how to protect our kids, it's like it gives us superpower hearing. Moms out there, you remember, right? When your kid finally got big enough to be in a different room that you were in, you know how part of your brain would just listen to what was going on and hope you didn't hear a crash and just be ready for that inevitable call when they needed help. And they'd say, Mom, kids need our help now. They are calling us to join them now, to support them, to help secure a healthy, safe, just, and climate resilient future for our kids and for all kids. So it is time for us moms to do what we do best, is get up and go fix what is wrong. And that means that in addition to telling our kids to wear a bike helmet and be careful crossing the street, a mom's job today must include rolling up our sleeves and taking on the fossil fuel bullies that are harming all children. So we moms need to call and write and protest our elected officials to ensure that they deliver climate leadership that matches what the science and justice demands. Remember, those elected officials work for us. Their job is to safeguard the future, and our job is to make them do it. And we also need to stop financially supporting fossil fuel corporations. We wouldn't give allowance to a kid who trashed the house and hid the truth and literally killed people. So why are we giving billions of dollars to fossil fuel corporations? Ellen talked about how to stop private funding by getting banks and investors to withdraw support. That is great. And we also have to stop public subsidies. Congress, the federal Congress, is considering this issue right now. So call your members of Congress and tell them to stop giving public handouts to fossil fuel corporations. Stop propping up the corporations that are driving the climate crisis and threatening our children's future. There's information on how to do that on the Fire Drill Friday website. So check it out after this call. And we need to join with others to make our voices louder. There are lots and lots of moms out there. So we don't have to do it alone. We're more powerful and it's more fun when we join forces and do it together. So join Fire Drill Fridays, APEN, Moms Clean Air Task Force, and Greenpeace. Together, we moms need to fight fossil fuels like our children's future depends on it, because it does. So it is time for moms reporting for duty. Fossil fuel companies, beware.
Annie. Great call to action.
Yes, Danny.
And now I'd like to introduce Miya Yoshitani, who is the Executive Director of the Asian Pacific Environmental Network, APEN. APEN has been fighting and winning environmental justice struggles for the past 25 years and remains one of the most unique organizations in the country, explicitly developing the leadership and power of low-income Asian American and Pacific Islander immigrant and refugee communities. Welcome, Miya.
Thank you so much, Jane, and to my friend and fellow mom, Annie Leonard. It's so great to be here with you all on this Friday before Mother's Day. First, I want to acknowledge that I am talking to you today from unceded Ohlone territory, aka Oakland, California. And I know that we're thinking about our moms. I know we think of this holiday as being about brunch and buying cards and flowers to show appreciation for our mothers, and I do appreciate mine. Happy Mother's Day, Mom, if you are watching this. But I think it's really fitting that this holiday actually started out as a political holiday. It started out as an anti-war declaration. It started out as a proclamation of peace after the Civil War by an abolitionist and suffragette, and also in recognition of a mother who was a social justice community organizer, fighting for access to clean water for children of poor and working families in Appalachia. In that sense, I think Mother's Day might actually be the real Earth Day. And don't get me wrong, I love flowers and cards. I really love brunch. It's definitely my favorite meal. But more than that, I want to celebrate a holiday about motherhood that was started with the explicit purpose of organizing communities against militarization and war, and that was a call to collective action on behalf of children and vulnerable communities. I want a Hallmark card for that, because to fight for and win climate justice, collective power and action is what we need more than any other strategy. We need to build power together where we live, work, play, and pray for the safe, healthy, and just future that all our kids deserve. Being a parent is, and always has been, a mix of joy, amazement, frustration, heartbreak, and being a parent in the context of raising kids to be equipped to face and deal with a future that has global climate disaster at some level built in as a certainty. It's really hard. But one thing I know from 30 years in the environmental justice movement is that you actually don't have to be a mom to care about the health, safety, resilience, and liberation of all children in every community, in every country. You don't have to be a mom to care about the disproportionate impact that climate change is having on frontline communities. And living in this combined crisis of the pandemic, the economic crisis, the crisis of racial injustice, and the climate crisis, you don't have to be a mom to understand that we are not healthy and safe until everyone is healthy and safe, that we are not free until everyone is free. I also know that not everyone in this crisis is experiencing it equally or in the same way. For our members here at APEN in California, that looks like breathing poison air next to a refinery during a massive wildfire when air quality is unsafe, while at the same time, family members have been dying from COVID, while people are being laid off from their jobs and trying to fight evictions or deportations, while they're being targeted for racist attacks just for going to the store or waiting for the bus. And at the same time, they're paying increasingly higher electricity bills to keep the lights on, to a utility that causes more wildfires. It's horrifying. It's not just one thing. It never has been. It's all of it together. And that's why it requires all of us together, following the leadership and solutions of people hit hardest by this crisis. Being a parent is very powerful. And like I've heard many people say, it's like having a piece of your heart moving around the world outside of your body. But it doesn't give you special powers to be in touch with your humanity. We all have that power. We all have the power when we act together to fight for bold, people-centered, racially just solutions to the climate crisis. Solutions like the Green New Deal and the Federal Thrive Act that will create millions of jobs for working families, investments in housing, in healthcare, in the caring economy, in public transit, healthy food, land restoration, clean air, and clean water. For our communities to be able to thrive and be resilient in the face of climate crisis means we need to be working and building across communities, Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian American, Pacific Islanders, and all communities, to imagine and fight for a thriving future together. Mothers, grandmothers, children, all of our families together. But there's one last thing that I will say as a mom. As brilliant, fierce, and powerful as this next generation of young people fighting for climate justice are, as capable and as adaptive as they are, I absolutely refuse to leave them alone to solve the problems that previous generations have created for them. I will organize, I will vote, I will get everyone in my neighborhood and community to vote, I will campaign, I will win until we are done. And I know that the people participating in the Fire Drill Fridays will not stop either. So thank you so much for including me. Thank you, Annie and Jane, for your leadership, and have a wonderful and happy Mother's Day celebrating our power together.
Yeah. Thank you, Monica. Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Good word.
And now I want to introduce Heather McTeer. Toney was the first African-American, the first female, and the youngest person to serve as mayor of Greenville, Mississippi. In 2014, she was appointed by President Obama as a regional administrator to the EPA. And she's now field director of Mom's Clean Air Force. She also happens to be on the cover of my climate book, What Can I Do? Welcome, Heather.
Thank you so much, Jane. It's so wonderful to see you again, and I cannot wait until we're together again in person. This is truly the time for moms to be on the front lines, as we always have been. So my prayer for everyone and my wish for all of the mothers is that you take this weekend and get some rest. You need to get some rest because we have been on the front lines. And none of us could have known when we were together at that wonderful Climate Friday, Fire Drill Friday in 2019, none of us could have known that within the next 3 months, we would be quarantined. Because in fact, the next 3 months completely shifted how we looked at not only climate, but race and equity in America. Mother's Day 2020, we were mourning. We were mourning the losses of Ahmaud Arbery. We were mourning the losses of George Floyd. We were mourning Breonna Taylor, and we were understanding that each and every aspect of our work was directly tied to equity in this country. And as mothers, we were reckoning with the fact that we had to explain this to our children, raise them in this myth, and teach them to do better. So we were at a place of tremendous work. But as I think back on it and I look at it now, it's the reason why at Mom's Clean Air Force, we decided that we had to take the mantra, justice in every breath. It's because through justice in every breath, we could reckon with and show our members and show mothers how even in the middle of dealing with violent activity across our country, it was our responsibility to act on climate, because studies have shown us that as the climate and the temperatures warm, violence increases across the country, particularly in urban communities. We know for a fact that as extreme weather events continue to come across this country, whether it be wildfires in the West, floods in the Mississippi Delta, or hurricanes coming across the Gulf Coast region, it is layered and doubly and sometimes triply impacted when we look at the incidences of COVID, incidences of poverty, and the rate in which people of color who live closely are disproportionately impacted by climate impacts in conjunction with other social justice issues. And so this Mother's Day, we need to rest. You need to rest, relax, lay down, take a nap. Reason being, because Monday morning, it's going to be time to get up and go back to work. Monday morning, we will be required to get up and go and hold our members of Congress accountable to make sure that we're continuing to put the funding in the communities that need it first, and that we are ensuring we are moving towards an equitable and just future. Monday morning, we will not have solved climate change, but Monday morning we will be making calls to ensure that our friends and neighbors understand the gravity of the situation. On Monday morning, we will get back to work reckoning with how we have to ensure that every single aspect of what this administration has said and promised will continue to move forward in a way that is quick, that is just, and that is getting us to the place where we need to be. Now, I will tell you, I was raised, I'm Southern, I'm coming to you from the Chickasaw land here in the state of Mississippi, where it is warm and beautiful outside. But I was raised in the Baptist church, and there was a scripture, 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, that says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And the way that my pastor and my mother used to tell me, it was, that means that you have the power, you are empowered to do those things that you know you need to do. You have to act in love. God says you have to love everybody. He didn't say like, but he did say love. And so everything needs to be operating in a spirit of love. And then a sound mind means you have good common sense. And so our good common sense is what lets us know that as we move forward, there are opportunities that we must follow after. We absolutely must ensure that as we're talking about the Justice 40 infrastructure needs in our country, that it is done in a fair and equitable manner, that we're looking forward with a lens of hope. I fully expect to be able to see my children be successful in environmentally friendly and climate productive spaces as their careers. I look at our young people and I say to them, this is the time that you can be so creative with green innovation, green economy, that we can look and we can truly make a difference, and you can be the change we are waiting for. And as your parents, we are here to help you. So mamas, aunts, uncles, abuelas, tias, get some rest this weekend, because Monday morning, it'll be time to go back to work. And we're going to need all hands on deck, because this crisis demands our utmost attention, and we have to do it in a fair and equitable manner. I plan on taking a nap, because Monday morning, we'll be right back at it.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And to conclude this Mother's Day rally, we're going to hear from the Indigo Girls. Released in 1989, their major label debut sold over 2 million units under the power of the singles called Closer to Fine and Kids Fears, and turned Indigo Girls into one of the most successful folk duos in history. Let's listen.
Hey, y'all. I'm Emily.
I'm Amy.
We're the Indigo Girls.
Thank you, Jane and Fire Drill Fridays, for fighting for climate justice.
We are so happy to be here, and just in case you notice, you might hear a little bit of a beautiful Atlanta thunderstorm as well.
Right.
The saddest sight my eyes can see is that big ball of orange sinking slyly down the trees, sitting in a broken circle while you rest upon my knee. Perfect moment will soon be leaving me. Suzanne calls from Boston, the coffee's hot, the corn is high, and that same sun that warms your heart will suck that gutter dry. With everything it's opposite, enough to keep you crying. Oh, keep this old world spinning with a twinkle in its eye. Get out the map, and lay your finger anywhere down. We leave the figurine to those we pass on our way out of town. And don't drink the water, there seems to be something ailing everyone. And I'm gonna clear my head, I'm gonna drink that sun. I'm gonna love you good and strong while our love is good and young. Yeah. Joni left for South Africa a few years ago. Well, you know that took a job all the way over on the West Coast. Me, I'm still trying to live half a life on the road. Oh, it seems I'm heavier by the year, heavier by the load. And why do we hurt ourselves through every inch of time and space? I must say, around some corner I can sense a resting place. Every lesson learned, a line upon your beautiful
beautiful face.
We'll amuse ourselves one day, but these memories will trace. Get out the map and lay your finger anywhere down. We'll leave the figure into those we pass on our way out of town. Don't drink the water, there seems to be something ailing everyone. I'm gonna clear my head. I'm gonna drink that sun. Good and strong while our love is good and young. And I'm gonna clear my head. I'm gonna drink that sun. I'm gonna love you good and strong while our love is good and young. Yeah.
All right.
Right. That was great.
Love you. Wow. Oh my gosh. What a powerful and moving and inspirational rally. Thank you so much to all our guests for sharing their stories and songs with us and their hearts. I feel so inspired, and I'm sure everyone on here does too. You know, it's our responsibility to protect each other, our planet, and our children, now and for 7 generations to come. And as such, it is our responsibility to end the era of fossil fuels. This starts with ending fossil fuel subsidies. Each year, this industry is given billions of dollars in subsidies from the government, subsidies that we're paying for. We've got to stop this if we hope to avert the worst impacts of climate chaos. I ask each of you to contact your representative and tell them to support the End Polluter Welfare Act. This legislation would rid these disastrous subsidies. We need to be investing our money into communities and advancing justice, not into dangerous and long expired industries. And so you know the drill, right? To make the change, we need to take action. Head over to firedrillfridays.com/takeaction to contact your member of Congress right now. Whether this is your first time or your 100th, we want them to hear from each person in the Fire Drill Friday community every Friday until fossil fuel subsidies are a thing of the past. Share the link with your family and friends and ask them to do the same thing. We have got to keep pushing. Also, remember to put movie night on your calendars, okay? May's Fire Drill Friday movie night will be Thursday, May 27 at 5 p.m. You can sign up at firedrillfriday.com/movie night to be the first to hear about the movie selection, but I can tell you that Spike Lee will be my guest. Have a beautiful weekend. Happy Mother's Day. Special gratitude to all the mothers for all you carry and the love and protection you shower our world in. See you next time. Thank you.
Great job, everybody.
Jane.